My God. All right. I started the last forum in tears, laughing with our guests, and I'm starting this one the same way. It's just that kind of day. We're maybe a little punchy after a couple of days of this. Welcome back to Foiling Week 2020 and the Gurrit Forum. I am your host, Chris Museler, and I am here with my co-host, Andrew Pindar, in Lago di Garda with Bruno Gentoli. And our previous panel discussion, which was really fantastic, like they all have been, we were talking basically about the smallest, most accessible form of hydrofoiling. And this next discussion is talking about the largest, possibly the most inaccessible form of hydrofoiling, but nonetheless just as important in the world of hydrofoiling, because as things develop, they have different uses around the world. They have different influences. They inspire people to do different things or go different places. And that's what hydrofoiling is doing for us. It's sending us in all these new different directions. Our guest today is going to be talking about large yacht hydrofoils and if we're even there yet to do those kind of things and how is it possible. This is Manny Frers. He's actually in Lago di Garda and he was trying to windsurf and kite surf this morning, but luckily it's not windy and we have him here. Hi, Manny.
Hi all.
Thanks for joining us. And as always, Manny, you know, the one thing is that I know your father probably more because of you these days. But I hope you don't mind that we mentioned that your father, Herman Frers, has been in the yacht design industry for an awful long time. Your grandfather has been in the yacht design industry from Argentina. I know I've seen some of his catches. In the Caribbean 600, I raced against your grandfather's boat.
Wow.
An old catch, but beautifully maintained in a really fast boat. So your family's been involved in yacht design for years, and now we're sitting here talking with you about hydrofoils. Andrew, give us some perspective on yacht design and yachts. And now that we're talking about hydrofoils, what's going through your mind right now as we move into the yacht space and yacht design?
Yeah, well, I'm fascinated by this when has the opportunity of foiling really starting? Is it really now becoming mainstream? It appears to me as though it's really becoming mainstream, Manny. That instead of it being something that was just being looked at for either, dare I say, kids on some kind of wild thing on the ocean or for race boats in the America's Cup, now it feels as though it's coming into the mainstream of yacht design. And by the sound of things from the talk we had just before we got going here, that's very much the place that you're finding yourself. Is that the case?
It's an interesting question. You were mentioning my grandfather's designs in catch and the way we go sailing, mostly offshore or cruising or racing. And essentially foiling has existed for many years. Thanks to new construction technologies, materials, it allows to expand that envelope of use. And essentially where we start, you can see some examples of, as you say, wild solutions, which we don't really know why they exist. But the way we look at design, engineering, and build is we look at the goal first, what we are trying to achieve, and then find the best solution to fulfill the goal. It could be racing, it could be cruising, it could be around the world cruising. But one of the things I learned as a young kid, when we were going sailing, you go sailing, you never turn on an engine. And when we were in Argentina, I remember we will fuel the boat like once a year. And if at the end of the year, the tank was not full, you were not a really good sailor. So the engine was like, and every time somebody will turn on the engine, it was like, what's going on? So from then, we grew up, projects evolved, sizes got bigger, luxury came in the past. you will take whatever it was available, and luxury was not really an option. You will just survive through everything, and if you complain, you were not a really good sailor. No, so this is 70s, 90s. Then luxury comes in, engine rooms become bigger, air conditioning, all the luxury things, sound, TVs, and all these things, and suddenly you have a floating house that is planning at 20 knots, but still had this huge engine room and a lot of maintenance. So the maintenance of the boat was more the generator than the rigging, the winch. So suddenly we start moving away from the sailing boat. And I always have this in the back of my mind and fight or argue about how to reduce, how to eliminate. And human beings are not really yet ready to sacrifice things. We want everything, and we want always more, cheaper, and safer, and so that's where the evolution is taking us. I was thinking, we have the performance. Sailing is getting faster. What we do with this performance? So then we start thinking we can generate energy out of it. So 3 years ago, we did 3 or 4 years ago in Sydney, a sailing boat, a 57-footer called Shearwater, which was the first hybrid sailing boat where you could actually go sailing, enjoy cruising, and never turn the engine on. So it took me back 30 years, thanks to hybrid technology, battery capacity, and charging when you are sailing. So suddenly we are generating energy through sailing. So in the day of hybrid cars, hybrid motorbikes, hybrid planes, everything hybrid, you still have to come back home and plug it in. So what we are doing is we are generating this energy through sailing. So we are turning sailing into like windmills in a way. So then the next step was how we move this into bigger boats and bigger sailing yachts. And by big, I mean really large. And suddenly, I one night I was doing this sketch. I was asked, what would you do on a large sailing yacht? And we put foils. We have the speed, which is around 20 knots cruising speed, and we were generating our energy, and we were pretty much self-sufficient as long as there is wind. And we start this development, and we use foils to achieve the speed that we need to generate the energy. But then you get into better apparent wind sailing, so you only have a jib and a main, and you start getting really all the benefits of foiling, which is apparent wind sailing, so with a very narrow apparent wind angle. So at that point, your deck hardware, your sailing handling, your rig design, everything becomes extremely simple because you have pretty much a fixed apparent wind angle compared to the rest, and it becomes easier for the crew to use or the owner. So suddenly you have a apparent wind machine with foils that is generating all the energy in full comfort and very little heel angle, for example. So this is where we are now. And but the reason we got there was to generate energy, and foiling was the door that allow us to reach that target.
Do you see any? That's cool. Go ahead, Andrew.
I'm excited by this whole direction you're talking about, Manny, and just talk us more about the foils on the 57 you did there, the Shearwater. Was it a Hugh Wellborn sort of DSS sort of foil, or what sort of foil systems were you putting onto boats like this?
No, actually, on the 57, there's no foils. Is a more of a conventional, if you like. It's just a lightweight construction, carbon racing type of boat. You can say like an IRC boat. But what the key was there was the having the full luxury and comfort, enjoying the sailing, having fun when you're sailing, and not using one drop of fuel. And that really changed your experience when you are sailing, and it sort of brings you back to the basics. It's not that people is not doing it now, but suddenly you have an electric boat and all of the problems with a lot of ancillary things on board disappear. You have a few cables, you can fix it yourself. It's safe. You can drive the boat from the bow if you're alone. For example, you have to moor. It has a lot of practical implications, and it creates like a new generation. It makes it easier to sail. I think we have to make sailing boat easier, simpler, and eventually, by simplifying, the cost comes down also, or at least is equal to a conventional sailing boat, which is the target at the moment. So on the 57, we have no foils. Yeah, that's the boat. Yeah, that's the boat.
Now, on just moving forward to those designs that you're talking about, the efficiencies of foils. Let's 2 parts. Let's get in. Pick one design concept, not one design, but a design concept that we can kind of dig in on, and then I want to ask the question, like basically how it works and how big it is. And then the question that I want to ask is, I think it's awesome that you come to the use of foils in these luxury yachts as a solution to a bigger idea. But do you see any either A, resistance to the use of foils from clients, or do you have clients that come in and say, I don't care what you do, I want a foil on my boat?
The clients do what we recommend, really. We're gonna do this boat in this way, and that's how it goes. You explain, and they say fine.
Okay, cool. So let's get into one of those designs and how how the foils get integrated into bigger and bigger boats, and what it does for the boat.
Well, what it does is essentially it gives you more comfort. It gives you less heel angle. It makes the boat less dependent on the keel as stability, because the stability is coming from the foil, and that helps reduce the draft, for example, which is one issue you have compared to a large motor yacht. If you compare a motor yacht with a sailing boat, and it gives you more control. When you're on a large yacht, there's a huge forces that we humans we are too small to control.
Right.
And the foil gives you a sort of an active suspension, if you like, or it prevents the boat doing, going head to wind or heeling too much, and it's much safer. It's like having a 4-wheel drive compared to a 2-wheel drive. So it's a much more consistent behavior of the boat, which is different compared to the racing boat with foils, which are a lot more aggressive. What happens is that we set the speed we want to sail, and the foil adjusts itself to fulfill the needs of righting moment or dampening in waves and so on. So it's a bit of we are not trying to go too fast, because there is no need, actually. When you are averaging 20-25 knots, that's plenty fast for anything that is around sailing. And we don't want to also push it to an extent which is useless, because then it's not comfortable. Then you have to overbuild the structure, overbuild a lot of parts, and then becomes very expensive. and very slow.
So on your luxury sailboats right now, designs that either you're working on or about to complete, how many of them have foils? Are you going to be putting foils on more of these designs?
One. No, at the moment is one.
Which one is that?
Which is
Can you tell us?
not even.
Maybe give us a concept.
It will be launched in 2025. So we just completed all the engineering phase. Cool. And because of the size, it takes quite a while to construct.
Yeah.
And I don't think it will be everybody's cup of tea, but I think it will really turn around what's happened. Every yard that had quote on it, they said, man, this is really changing the world. And the way what we are doing is actually, you can have like a motor yacht under sail. And although there's been a lot of experiments and some boats launched that are trying to achieve that, none of them succeed, or they succeed at a very high wind speed, like 25 knots. And the average wind speed we see around here is around 10, 11. So people have the sailing boat that they don't use really. They motor 80% of the time. So, but by giving them a reason to sail, because you are generating quietness, you have no exhaust, you have no smell, you have no noise. I mean, it's a completely different exercise. And in parallel, we have been developing also a line of electric motor yachts, and I learned a lot through that. On the electric motors and what you are able to do on this technology, which is fascinating. So you get efficiency on one side through the development on the propulsion and electric motors, and you get efficiency with the foil. So what we're doing is combine them to take you to another level of safety, comfort, and it's actually taking you. But what I love from this is going out is the same as going out in a 8-meter sailing boat or in a 24-footer. You just, if you need an engine to get out, it's a quiet engine. There's no petrol in it. Then you hoist your sails, 2 sails, and you go sailing, and you go fast, and you go under control, and without the foils, we are not able to do that. So the foil configuration is designed specific for that, and I'm very excited about this because it's really something that is changing, and we changing the way we approach the design and of the large yachts. On the smaller boats, you always have the complication of the cost and the expense, which is important because all the yachts are crazy expensive when even small boats. But at the same time, we have this industry that is developing incredible materials, incredible way of building boats, and engineering simulations. Nowadays, you have these simulations that allows you to test and develop all this in a computer or a cluster, but still a simulation, and that is allowing us. So all this technology and design is allowing us to make this evolution. So I collect all these options that we see and test them, and it's quite an interesting time to be designing these type of boats. I'm the 3rd generation of designers, so I've seen the thing going on since I'm a kid. And when you start designing, you're always looking to the next, like the normal thing. Okay, this is it, and it's no much of a challenge, fairly straightforward. Mm-hmm. So we enjoy this challenging project.
And it's Andrew, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm getting super excited.
Yeah.
Just talking about the multi-generational side of the Frers naval architecture side of you. Your family came from a performance side, didn't you? You were designing race boats, I think, up to cup boats and things. Do you draw? You finding the developments in this current AC75 something that you're going to be able to take into the general market, the more luxury market that you work mainly in? Is there that trickle down? Is that relevance? How do you see that, man?
The trickle down happens is not as visual as you can see it. It happens through the systems, through the techniques to construct, through software development. What we said at the beginning, no, is that we set a goal and we look for it and find the best solution for it. The AC75 has a very clear scope, which is the maximum technology design competition you can create, and it can vary. I mean, it's been changing. Was monohulls, catamarans. That this year is a foiling monohull or whatever it's called, and next year we don't know. It will depend who wins it, but in a way, the America's Cup is its own world. Compared to the past, there was a lot of trickle down from the displacement boats, the EICC, the V5 boats, to the normal sailing boats. I remember we will use a lot of the development, not for that specific class, but all the shapes, the tools, and we use that a lot on the racing boats, club racing or cruising boats, all the knowledge. I think this will still happen with the AC75s, but not in the form or shape that you see the AC75s. I mean, riding with helmets at 50 knots with a chase boat is not what you would call a comfortable sailing or super yacht sailing. It's a fun toy, exciting. I'm still impressed today. You can go that fast with soft sails. I was not so impressed about the foils, but more about the sail plan. And I find that beautiful. It's incredible, and I wish I was waiting to see them now in Sardinia on this racing, because it's already incredible. But I think they are very fast compared to what you call performance sailing. Even nowadays, we're getting to a point where we are reaching the maximum speeds, and you're starting to slow down on racing boats, on cruising boats. So in the past, you will just push as hard as you can. And I remember on a classic boat, we nearly sink once trying to push the boat, and we were starting to sink, and the wave was coming inside. And then we start stopping, so putting sails down to survive. And what we are seeing now, like for example, we choose what speed we want to do. It's like a car, and that is quite interesting. That we don't need to go faster. We can go much more efficient. We can go simpler. We can go lower cost. We can go green. There is a lot of more important aspects than just speed. So the shape of the 75 is fantastic, but it's more of a fun boat. I would say a day sailor.
We're sticking on the questions about the race boats and whether they have trickle down or the views you would have. Quite a few of the people that your friends who are also yacht designers, Juan K and Guillaume Verdier, people like that, when they're looking at the Amoca 60, which is, as you know, it's somewhere that I spent quite a bit of time when we had 4 Amoca 60 programs. Certainly when Moose was creating our last 1K designed Open 60 in about 2005 or so. He was really keen, as was Moose, to put foils on then, but the Amoca class didn't want to take the technology. It was fearful of that technology. Do you think that fear prevents doing what is possible, or do you think that the likes of seeing foiling on moths and everything else is causing the fear to go away?
That's quite interesting question, because it affects sailing since it started with the classes. No, there's always been this thing about creating a class to compete and then limiting development to be able to compete, and limiting cost. And every country has its own view about what is attractive, what is cost limitation. But if you look at design development historically, we have the French that they don't like rules, and we have the Anglos that they need a rule, and you need to tell them this is the tip of the Everest, see who gets there first. And the French, they will say, why go to the Everest? Let's go around the world. So it's a different view, no? And then you create a boat that is exactly for those needs. So design development has not been constrained, well, in a way, yes, by the rules, but there was a requirement to be able to have a race. And so during the years, when I have a son, by the way, who is also designing, and he asked me all these questions. Why are we foiling now? Why these hull shapes that have been used in the 60s are coming up again now? And all my answers are because the rules. You have a rule, you have to win the race within those rules, and that's it. And as a designer, you can choose to fight the rules and fight the gray areas. By having done it myself, and especially at the beginning, IRR or IMS, it was so easy to find holes in the rules and win. And as in my early 20s, I remember we designed a maxi with my father and went against the top designers, top crews, and we were sailing past them by 1 knot faster or 2 knots faster. And I thought, this is a pretty easy job. I mean, it's so easy to find a hole in the rule, make a boat that's just 2 meters longer, and just sail past them. And so I thought, this is how my father did it. And but then after doing it a few years, I thought, this is completely stupid, because the owners, they pay a fortune for this racing, and the rule makers are trying to catch up with the development, and we are exploiting every gray area we can. And the more money you get, the more developed gray areas you got. And suddenly, if you develop gray areas, you become a good designer. And that is completely nonsense, because the gray areas, you have to look for them. You have to risk if they're going to be approved or not. They can, fire back. And then you need lawyers. And it's a completely going off track of the goal, which is racing and having fun and having a good boat and good naval architecture. So
it's interesting you say that. I live in a town called Scarborough in the northeast coast of England, and it's a fishing town. And many years ago there was a rule-busting fishing boat had been built that had to pick within a certain length to be able to then go and catch cod. And it was like a square tub. And the fishermen wouldn't sail on it because they believed they were going to meet their maker. They were going to be at the bottom of the ocean. This was unsafe. So it got there, it passed the rules and could go and catch cod in theory, but it was going to sink and kill everybody. So what's the point? And I think that's the point you're making, is that what's the point?
Yeah. So, and coming back to your question about on the 60 class, the IMOCA 60, I think they have managed it extremely well, because the Vendée Globe, which is the biggest event of the class, it's an adventure. Yes, it counts whoever wins, but also even the last guy that arrived 200 days later, he's a winner too. So
Conrad Coleman was a real winner in that last race.
Yeah. So to me, this is the next level of racing, which is everyone is a winner, which it doesn't work hand in hand with today professionally sponsor, eyeballs and return of investment of the sponsor. You have to win to be successful. You're pushed to win to ridiculous extremes. And I think the Vendée is a very nice example, because everyone is a winner on that race, and that kind of racing is fantastic. I mean, I followed the first guy and I followed the last guy, the guy that and is tied up with life, if you like. So what they have done with the class, going back to the foils, is they have allowed the foils to slowly creep in the class. And now I don't know how many there are, but you have like half the fleet with foils, say, and slowly bringing up old boats to be competitive and recycling. So in that sense, it's a positive. I see it as a positive introduction. It comes with a whole lot of problems, which is expense, really fast speeds. I mean, it's closer to the human, what the human can actually do.
Right.
And but the key to that class is that they have limit the rig size. And if you look historically, if you limit the rig size and the power, which is what makes a boat harder to sail. Like you had a boat, no? One of your Open 60 was a huge boat, really powerful, huge rig. Thinking that
it had a bigger sail plan than a Volvo 70. I think it was 100 foot was the mast, something like that, and it had 49 tons of righting moment.
Yeah, well, imagine that handled by a single guy. I don't know how he could do it.
He struggled. It was Brian Thompson, but he struggled.
Yeah. So I think the smartest move was, as soon as you limit the rig and the power you can put in, the first thing you do is limiting power, righting moment. It allows girls to come in, which are not as strong, or smaller bodied girls or male, doesn't matter, and push the development into efficiency. So suddenly the race is not about having a more powerful boat, but it's about having less drag, and how you maintain average speeds, and that makes for a good boat. And that's what they do today, which they have extremely high average speeds, and it's wonderful. And you don't really need to fully fly to achieve that. So the next step, I guess, it would be what if the fully flying will be an improvement on safety and on how the crew lasts around the world.
Do you think IMOCA will end up putting elevators on the rudders, or do you think that's a step too far for them?
Well, it's just an opinion. I think that first, let's see how they go around this time, how many they last. I think the French have been incredible, creative along the years. I was about to design a few, and I was always surprised how they will set to the Atlantic and around the world. I like their race courses where you say, you go here, Cape Town, Cape Horn, and get back. That's very easy. I can understand them when you are in France looking at the ocean with no limitation. Is why stop? But they have set out in boats that were completely unprepared, and I was surprised how many will lose the keels or lose pieces, and it was not a big deal for them. You just pick them up, somebody picked them up, and off they go again. So I'm very happy to see now that they are so highly professional and developed, and the rules came into, and this is where the rules are useful for safety reasons. So now they have all metal keels and that sort of thing that they don't survive. They go past the Cape Horn, let's say. And but I admire the creativity, and I think elevators. It's one step. It's a lot of development. I was racing and sailing A-class catamarans when we went from when seafoils to fully flying, and start putting elevators on the rudders, and then a bigger foils, and oh, this is so exciting, and so and so. But then the complications, the design development, the cost. For me, I could not afford it. I just pull out.
Yeah.
So this is just one example, but the dedication it needs. So every time you add one piece to the puzzle, it's like starting all over again. All your past experience goes by the drain. It's a clean sheet of paper, start again. And there is a lot of cost involved in that. And I don't know if now is the right time to do that, but for sure it would be the next step at some stage.
And that's a great transition to our last panel discussion is tomorrow morning, and that is with Guillaume Verdier and Juan Kay and Antoine Mermot. Yeah, so they're going to explore that question too, and they may come to the same conclusion. I don't know.
I think they are more in the ball there. Yeah.
I love the talk about efficiencies. The one thing I'm learning from you is that with larger luxury yachts, it's not, we all think when we say foils, we're all exposed to the Moth and the America's Cup, which is what we all first kind of saw. So we think, oh, Manny Frers, when he talks about foils, we're going to see an 80-foot luxury yacht just up out of the water and ripping along. But you're explaining to us how the efficiencies of hydrofoils, and that's what we learn at Foiling Week, all the applications, the positive applications. Ian Percy yesterday from Artemis Technologies talking about that application in transportation and ferries. So we're learning that it's not just about just up out of the water and flying like crazy. We have to wrap this up, Manny. We can talk forever about this, but I hope the breeze comes up for you in kite surfing and windsurfing today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Otherwise, we'll go by your place. I think it's a very inspiring event. Not because we are live, but that's and just by a fortunate encounter, I find out about this. So it's inspiring, and keep up the good work.
Cool. Well, the last question I have for you is, what are in your dreams of what hydrofoils can do that hasn't been done?
I think being done is, I cannot see more shapes of foil at the moment, or anticipate. I think what we learn already is how to make use of them efficiently, and from now on, it's not that every single boat will be flying, because actually. Even in cargo and things, I mean, displacement mode is quite an effective way of moving weight. But foiling, I think it will be new shapes. I don't know. I think it will make sailing more exciting.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andrew and Bruno. Any more from you guys?
We're good.
No, we're going to wait for Manny. If you want to try to wing in the afternoon, you're welcome.
Oh, yeah.
We have,
Sure. Yeah. Okay, cool.
See you here.
Thanks, Manny. I look forward to catching up.
Thank you, Manny. Thank you, everyone. Stick around. We're going to talk about kite foil, racing kite foil development. Very narrow angle, but has far-reaching effects with the Chubenga version 3 foil. So
that's incredible. I mean, you were saying about what's the future. I mean, if one person can go that VMG and as they achieve now, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
you
so
can
smart.
grab it. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, everyone. And Manny, please share this YouTube on your Frers channels, okay?
Okay. I don't know how you do that, but I will find out. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.